Welcome back. Some Democrats say Dan Malloy was a great governor. Others say he was okay. And Republicans, some of them have said he was just awful. So what is the truth? Well, with us today is one of his closest advisors, who obviously has a biased opinion, Andrew Doba, former advisor to the governor. And we thank you for being here with us, and one of his closest friends as well. Andrew, tell us, you know the governor personally, and I know it's got to be difficult when people say negative things about you, and he's been mired in these low poll numbers for a long time. Does it ever get to him on an emotional level?
I mean, look, I don't know a politician alive that doesn't say the only poll that matters is the one on election day. And on those two polls, he did pretty well in 10 and 14.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, from where I sit, I think there's a little bit of a frustration in, I mean, look, nobody likes the person that makes you take your medicine, but you need it to get healthy. And I think that is really sort of what he did over the last 8 years. Somebody's going to be sitting in that seat in the near future. They're going to have nice approval ratings. Things are going to be going relatively well, and it's because Dan Malloy did the hard work every day for 8 years.
Do you think that voters are reassessing their dislike of Dan Malloy? Because, as you know, the Republicans all ran against him this year. They ran commercials. Dan Malloy destroyed Connecticut. Dan Malloy wrecked Connecticut. And yet a Democrat won, Ned Lamont. And do you think that the voters decided, well, maybe it isn't that bad?
Well, I heard someone say when the cycle started that it was going to be a battle of who was more unpopular, Trump or Malloy. It was Trump by a long shot. I think there is a certain validation. I mean, the idea that it's approaching a supermajority in the Senate, the pickups, it absolutely is a validation. And I think, it's easy to dislike something in a vacuum. Do I want this specific thing or some other vague thing? It's easy to say, no, I don't like that. But when you have a clear choice and you have like, do I want this or that, it gets harder. And people, I think, recognize what you're trying to do.
I just want to take a pause for a second because I want to ask you, get your opinion on the big news this week. Nancy Wyman taking over the Democratic Party as the chairwoman. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's great. Nancy Wyman is a tireless public servant. She is, I think, a really unifying force in the party. I think she understands where the party needs to go. I think it's a great choice.
How does that relate to voters? Because most voters don't keep track of who's in charge of what party, but she's well known.
She is. I mean, I don't know that, it's sort of like a levels, right? I mean, certainly your average voter doesn't know. Your average Democrat probably will, and then you've got your insiders. I think she's perfect. I mean, she's been around. She knows the players, and I think she sees the direction the party's heading in, and she's a good kind of spearhead in that direction.
Back to the governor now. What do you think is his biggest accomplishment?
That's hard. If I have to choose one, it would be the legislation that was passed after Sandy Hook. If I had to choose one, I mean, he's lowered the unemployment rate 5 points, 126,000 private sector jobs, environmental improvements. So I think there's a huge legacy for him to be proud of. But if I had to pick one, that would be it.
I was talking to someone the other day about it, and they said, well, his biggest accomplishment is transforming the cities, particularly Hartford. There's been a lot of construction and a lot of transformation downtown since he took over.
Sure. Well, I mean, for a long time, it seemed like the policy of state government was to just let our cities die on the vine, and I think there is a recognition that they are drivers of economic growth, and so you're seeing that. I mean, these are investments that, they might be in one specific location, but they're meant to improve the situation for the whole area.
You're his advisor, his friend, you know him very, very well. What should he have done differently? Is there one thing that he did wrong that maybe if you had a do-over, yes, we would do it differently?
I can't point to, I mean, look, I mean, I'm not saying it was perfect. I don't know that there's one thing to say, to do that again. I mean, I think you got to play the cards you're dealt, and that's what he did, and the state's better off for it.
I know that some radio people and a lot of other people say that he's how do you say it, irascible sometimes, prickly, and not very nice to some people. But you see a different side of him.
I understand. I mean, he said it himself, right? The famous porcupine line. All I can tell you is, if you want to know, I mean, look at the people. I mean, I was there for 3.5 years. There's people that have been there for going back when he was the mayor of Stamford. So I can tell you, there's not any relation whatsoever to the one, to the person you're working for versus what's sometimes seen by people in the public.
Was it fair, do you think, that he got blamed for the losses of GE and other companies leaving Connecticut and the people moving and the population decline?
I mean, I'm sort of, I mean, I don't understand. People seem to be really down on Connecticut. People that lived here forever. I see the population go down, and I'm like, great, less traffic. I mean, if you don't want to be here, you don't have to stay. I mean, there's a lot of positives with this state that I sort of wish, if anything, like Connecticut needs a little self-esteem, if nothing else.
Let's talk about his relationship with Nancy Wyman, because they were together all the time, all the storm coverage, things like that. And it was kind of a coup for him to get her 8 years ago.
Oh yeah, I mean,
how did that go down?
He said it just this week, that one of the best fortunes he had in politics was getting Nancy as his running mate. I mean, look, And I think what really makes Nancy kind of stand out among, past lieutenant governors is that she had a real portfolio. I mean, she was in charge of the rollout of the Affordable Care Act. Connecticut did better than just about every other state with the implementation of that law. I mean, that is a credit to Nancy Wyman and her desire to help people as a public servant.
Finally, I need to post this picture for you right now. And 5 years ago today, during a taping of Face the State, you met your wife, Andrew Doba, who was my co-anchor at the time. You came in to the station, and I introduced the two of you, and the rest is history. You got married by the governor not too long after that.
January 23rd, 2017.
So, and Hannah pointed out that today was the 5th year anniversary, so we welcome you back, and the best of luck to the two of you.
And thank you for that. That was great.
Basically, it was life-changing.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Andrew Doba, we thank you so much for coming on the program today. When we come back, well, the face of Monday Night Football in a way you've never seen him, when he used to work back here at Channel 3. And you'll meet a power couple who has created quite a company. Talk about people being cranky in Connecticut. These people are smiling in Connecticut. And we welcome your comments on social media. You can find me right now on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.